This is Dr. Eric Fishman with EHR TV, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Robert Rowley, Chief Medical Officer and one of the originators of Practice Fusion. We're at HIMSS 2012 in Las Vegas. And Dr. Rowley, thank you for spending a few minutes with me.
This is delightful. Thank you for the honor.
You must be incredibly proud to have started a product that has now been used by over 100,000 physicians.
It is amazing to watch this thing grow beyond my wildest dreams.
And so tell me about when you first started it, what the incentive in doing it was.
So when we first started, the product I had created prior to Practice Fusion was something that originated in my own family practice.
Right.
I'm an insatiable geek, as it were, and created an EMR for use in my own practice. Tried to get that launched as a product in the marketplace, and was not very successful.
While practicing medicine.
While practicing medicine. And realized that a couple of things. I realized that EHR systems that you expect small practices to install in their local offices was just a no-go. I tried giving it away, giving my product away to colleagues, and found that they just weren't able to keep up the servers.
The issue being the client server, the technology needed in the office.
So it became clear to me then that a hosted service was the way to go for small doctors.
And when was that?
Gosh, that was maybe back in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
I also had tried a standard business model of selling the service, selling the product to physicians expected to be paid either a rental or a purchase price. And that didn't work very well either. It just wasn't clicking. I met Ryan, who's the founder of Practice Fusion, who had a great business idea of a free advertise-based product for healthcare. The free model in business has been quite well established in other verticals outside of healthcare.
What were the circumstances under which you met him?
We met through connections in Silicon Valley. We were kind of all part of that. It's such an incubator environment. You meet people who are doing similar things, and you get introduced. Somebody is saying, well, talk to this guy because he's doing something similar to what you're doing. And through those channels we met and decided that it would make sense to work together. He purchased my IP, and we launched the very first version of Practice Fusion, which is based on what I had created, with the free model as the basis.
It's a nice story, and free wasn't always working, but in the internet it works, because it can be.
It works. I mean, you look at fairly large companies like Facebook or Yahoo or Google, they have proven that the free model can work. There hasn't been a lot of, prior to us, there hadn't been a lot of proving that that can work in the healthcare space. So we were disruptive in that. We redid the interface to be web-based rather than a downloaded app, and built it on a service. We built it on Flash, which is something that at the time was ubiquitous. Everybody used Flash. This was before iPods came out. It doesn't use Flash because we didn't want to have to build different versions for different browsers. So that's kind of how it started. With a web-based service, one of the things that's just native to that is when you make changes to the product, you can roll them out to everybody everywhere all at once.
Instantaneously.
So you don't have to do the, oh my God, can I survive the upgrade to version 3.2 or something like that I hear people with locally installed
daily
having that issue. So that's been really helpful. And then we've just grown because it's ad-based. That model in healthcare means that we have to have active users for us to make our money. We'll give you the interface for free. If you use it, we'll do well. And so we're poised to make sure that we actively reach out to people who sign up and try to get them to become active users. That's what it all is based on. And we've done a good job at that.
You've done a phenomenal job of it.
We have. It's staggering how big it's gotten. And there's a lot of ways of measuring it, but we've got, at this point, about 150,000 users. Represents about almost 70,000 unique practices. I'd say a third to a half are active users using it all the time.
That was my question. What percentage of that 150,000, this is the primary way that they maintain their records?
That's what they do. I mean,
and you know that data? better than any client
we look
server
at that
product.
data daily.
Right.
So we know, we're the 6th largest channel to SureScripts in the country. We, created just last month about 2 million patient records in the EHR. So that people are using it, and people are using it not just because it's a way to get meaningful use money, although it is, and it's a free way of getting meaningful use money, but because I want it to be an essential tool for doctors, for ambulatory practices to be used. It's focused on ambulatory practices, not hospital.
Right.
It's used by practices of all different sizes. Many of them are the smaller practices.
But if you look at the bell-shaped curve, how far out does it go?
It goes out to about half of our practices are 5 or less. Half to 60% are 5 or less. So the small 1 and 2 physician practices use it well. And that has been an impenetrable barrier to most vendors for all the reasons that I discovered when I was trying to do my thing. And we've been successful at approaching them. Middle-sized practices, it seems like there's a shift in the demographics of how physicians are aggregated. So the 1 and 2 physician practices are declining in numbers, being replaced by single specialty small practices, medium-sized practices, the 5 to 50 physician single specialty practice, surgeons, the cardiologists, the oncologists, etc. And they're taking up this technology as well. We need to make sure that we have a product that provides all of the utility that they need. And so we're always trying to improve the product.
How often does it get updated?
It gets updated. Well, last year we had about a 4-month hiatus where we didn't do any updates.
Because
we were trying to build the product for meaningful use. And we could get to that endpoint faster if we just built it and then released it rather than incrementally release. Ordinarily, we incrementally release about once a month with various features. So there's various product roadmaps that drive the product, and we release them as best we can. We need to make sure that when we're releasing, particularly at our current size,
that they've been adequately tested.
That it'll be adequately tested and it doesn't slow people down.
Are you at liberty to tell us what's on the roadmap for the next 12, 24 months?
The biggest priority, one of the things we're unveiling here, is chart share. So chart share is a way of getting clinical information between different kinds of practices.
All of whom are using Practice Fusion, or who are using disparate systems?
So the way I look at it, there's 3 general approaches to sharing data. The traditional approach is what I call hub-based or the HIE-based approach. Hospitals are building their own hubs. Statewide and regional HIEs are starting to come together, but how they aggregate hospital-based hubs, we'll see. That's, I think, one of the biggest challenges. And that's an institution play. Institutions will probably talk to each other that way. And that's going on there. There's also what I call a point-to-point connection, which is the direct project way of getting, similar to faxing. It's getting data from one place to another place in a push kind of way. In a secure way. And then the third is what we call extend the platform. So if you're a doctor that I want to send a patient to, and you're not on Practice Fusion, I can send you a message saying, sign up, log on.
It's free, and you'll get the access to the data.
You can log it on right now, and you can be up and running in a couple of minutes, and you will have my message about the patient that I wanted to refer to you, regardless of what you have in your
Interesting model, not available to many other companies
here.
here.
It's a viral spread model. And that is one of the priorities that we're working on right now. And I think that's going to be very popular in the ambulatory space. So between one clinical doc and another clinical doc, outside of the hospital, sharing records back and forth between practices, that will be very helpful. The goal there is, initially it'll just be messages that are sent. Later on, there'll be actually selected elements of the chart that we can both write on. So I can see what you're doing, you can see what I'm doing, we can both look at the same lab.
How long will that be?
My hope is that'll come out in an iterated way over the course of this year.
How many programs do you have developing this?
We have, well, all of our staff is onshore and on site. So we've got, the company is growing by leaps and bounds. I would say a third of the company is engineering product management. And a good 2/3, leaving out, of course, everybody else, but the rest are user engagement and support. Those are also all on site. And of course there's clinical and legal and biz dev and all of the other pieces that are part of it. But we have a large engineering staff. And our approach is very much influenced by the modern way of thinking of doing user design. So we look at user experience, we do a lot of interviews of people who are going to be using, like the way that we've approached using the iPad. We're building an iPad app.
So tell me about that.
Okay.
Mobility is clearly a critical issue in this decade.
Right. So the iPad app is intended to address, again, because we're built in Flash, and iPad doesn't support Flash, we needed to build a native iPad app. And we look at who's going to be using an iPad. It's the practitioners, it's the doctors that are going to be using. It's not front desk. Front desk will be sitting at a desktop, so they use the regular app. MAs and nurses won't be carrying around an iPad. They'll probably record information, probably on a little piece of paper, that's what they do in my practice, and go to a workstation and enter the vital sign information and all that information. But doctors want something portable. And so the subset of workflows that the iPad is addressing are what doctors do. So the process was interviewing doctors, getting scenarios and stories, sort of storylines around use cases. And then from that, doing user interface. And from that, doing product development. And from that, doing engineering. So it's very much a user experience driven model that we've actually started to incorporate into everything that we design on the native website as well as the iPad app. So it's exciting. We're looking also at some mobility apps and some smartphone apps that again are functional subsets of who's going to be using a smartphone. Well, certainly not nurses and doctors in the office, but doctors on the way to the office or from home might want to look at their schedule, or they might want to generate messages, or they might want to look at refill requests. And so those kinds of sort of functional subsets will be things that make sense to have as mobile apps. And when you do your message on your iPhone while commuting in on the subway, it's at your office's desk, like something's come up, reschedule my morning patients or something like that. It'll happen because the data is all hosted in the cloud.
You mentioned paper in your office. Are you still practicing?
I'm still practicing.
How do you split your time?
I'm in my practice half-time,
okay.
And then I'm at Practice Fusion half-time, and they both take up full-time space in my head.
Welcome to my world.
Welcome to mine, that's the way it is. But this is an exciting year. I mean, we've gotten to the point where people know who we are. We have, I believe, demonstrated that the free model works in healthcare.
Clear.
And we want to anticipate where healthcare is going, understand how healthcare works, and where, how can we create products that will capture clinical quality measures, that will help organizations of physicians, ACOs, medical groups that are being more and more are going to be reimbursed based on performance-based measures rather than just piecework. And we want to have products that support that, anticipate, and will lead that. Involving patients in it, we have a patient portal. So patients can look at their problem list, their medications, their allergies, their immunizations, and their next appointments. Those are all there now. And I'd like to see that become much more robust.
Tell me something else that'll come in the next year.
So the PHR should have two-way interface.
Good.
Meaning messaging back and forth between the doctor and the patient. I want to see that happen. I want to see the clinical quality measures be much more robust and more complete. Again, chart share and really developing that is probably the #1 priority for us this year. And then the mobile apps. We also want to do an API for connecting other outside sources of data. So labs.
I would guess that everybody wants to connect to Practice Fusion, and it's probably a time-consuming event for your
well, it is.
team.
So we want to do an API build-out, for instance, that will allow local docs to go to their hospital and say, I want to get your lab data. Here's a way of doing it. Here's the plug. And then if that hospital is able to generate HL7, low-ink encoded lab data, that can be imported as structured data. So that'll be pretty exciting. The API I'm fairly excited about. We're looking at a lab API, we're looking at a more generic billing system API, and exporting and importing the CCR, CCD kinds of data, the summaries, the problem lists, the medications, the allergies, which RACs and HIAs and RIOs are interested in obtaining and sharing. And so I want to be able to do that probably through an API.
One final subject area we didn't touch upon is clinical content and templates, and I would think that you're in a very enviable position that if you could put together a template sharing methodology between your various specialties, your various physicians, that you'd have an incredibly robust set of clinical content.
That's correct,
and
we do. We have currently in a library of templates that are pre-built, that are already, there's about 180 some templates that are built around either types of exams, like physical exams for different ages, or types of diagnoses. And they can be, anybody can claim any element from the library, and then it's your copy of that template. You can modify it at will.
And do your users upload?
They don't upload it to the library is curated, but they can upload, or say, they can give me examples of templates they would like to have viewable by everybody. Templates can be shared within a practice, between practitioners within a practice. You can create your own templates that work the way you want them from scratch, or you can modify one from the library. And people do that all the time. Sharing between practices is something that needs to go through the library and needs to be curated. So I can upload, I'm always uploading to the library. But that is
Are you the curator?
I'm the curator, yeah.
Very well.
As the clinical guy, I'm the curator.
Got it.
So.
Dr. Rowley, anything else you want to talk to us about this afternoon?
I think we've touched on many of the different topics. I think the patient view, patient centricity. One of the other things is for physicians who want to go to meaningful use. So we've had a lot of people be able to achieve meaningful use successfully using Practice Fusion. The dashboard, we've built in a meaningful use dashboard into the product, so you can see at any time, on any day, how you're doing with all of the different measures, where you've succeeded, where you still need to work. And that's very helpful. You don't need a consultant to necessarily come in and extract the information from your EHR. It's right there. You can generate the reports that you need, and then use those reports to go and attest.
And yet you have about 1,000 consultants available to help implement Practice Fusion if required.
And that's something actually that we didn't really talk on. We do have a certified consultant network for practices that are still trying to implement their EHR. They're afraid. They're not sure how to get from paper to...
They're not geeks.
They're not geeks, They're not going to jump in with both feet. They may want to have stepping stones to get from one shore to the next. And we have on-the-ground consultants who are consultants in all the different communities around the US who have signed on to be Practice Fusion certified consultants. They can help people with, mostly it's workflow redesign. What are you going to do with all the paper that comes in? How are you going to do the transition of, often there's a transition period where you're using an EHR and you've got your old paper chart and you've uploaded all the demographics from your billing system, so that's been done. We do that for free in about a day. So you've got all of your chart notes, but they're empty at first. So every one of your patients is like a new patient at first. So there's going to be an automatic...
Not a fun day in the office.
Not a fun day in the office. So you use your old chart, and as you see patients, what we recommend is as you see patients, rather than bulk uploading everything in your chart rack, you enter the pertinent information as you go, and then once you've seen the patient with both, you retire that chart. And over time, most of the patients you're going to see you will have seen, and you won't ever be needing to pull out the old chart. So there is that transition phase of kind of one and the other. If you're going from one EHR system to a different EHR system, then actually importing that data is a different conversation. And we can work with people who want to do that. We have a number of people who are saying, I was using system X, I don't like it, it's old, it costs me too much money, I want to go to you guys. And we can help them do that so that they don't have to go through that phase of every patient's a new patient as far as your encounter is concerned.
Dr. Rowley, it's been fun meeting you.
Thank you.
Fun chatting
Thank you. This has been good.
This is Dr. Eric Fishman with EHR TV. We've been speaking with Dr. Robert Rowley, Chief Medical Officer of Practice Fusion. Thank you.